The morning sun rose over New Eden Colony like any other day. Children ran through the streets laughing as they played games before school started. Their parents watched from doorways, coffee cups in hand, smiling at the simple joy of a peaceful morning. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the defense station. He watched the kids play and felt proud of what they had built here. 50,000 people called New Eden home now. It was a good place to raise a family, far from the noise and danger of Earth's crowded cities. Beautiful morning, isn't it? Dr. Lisa Carter joined him at the window. She carried her medical bag heading to the school for the monthly health checks. Sure is, Jake replied. Hard to believe we've been out here 5 years already. Lisa nodded. The kids don't even remember Earth. This is home to them. Down in the town square, 8-year-old Amy Rodriguez helped her little brother tie his shoes. 10-year-old Danny Foster raced his friends to the playground. Their laughter echoed off the buildings, a sound that made everyone smile. Mayor Pete Sullivan walked through the square, greeting families as they started their day. He loved these morning walks. They reminded him why he had left his job on Earth to help build this place. Here, children could grow up safe and free. That afternoon, everything changed. The ships appeared without warning. 3 massive vessels dropped out of space above the colony. They were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Dark metal hulls covered in strange symbols, no windows, just smooth surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Jake rushed to the defense station's control room. His small team of security officers stared at their screens in shock. "Sir, they're not responding to our signals," Officer Karen White reported. Her voice shook slightly. "Keep trying," Jake ordered. He activated the colony-wide communication system. "Attention all residents. Unknown vessels have arrived. Please remain calm and stay in your homes until further notice." But the ships were already moving. They descended slowly, landing in the empty fields outside town. For an hour, nothing happened. The colonists watched from their windows, afraid but curious. Then the aliens emerged. They were tall and thin, with pale gray skin that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Their heads were larger than human heads, with big black eyes that seemed to see everything. They wore simple robes that moved in the wind. The leader approached the town gates. Mayor Sullivan met him there, flanked by Jake and 2 security officers. "Welcome to New Eden Colony," Pete said carefully. "I'm Mayor Sullivan." The alien bowed slightly. When he spoke, his voice was soft but strange, like music played on an instrument humans had never heard. "I am High Researcher Vexitar of the Zephyrian Empire," the alien said. "We are explorers and scientists. We wish to study your culture and learn about your people." Pete felt relieved. Scientists and explorers sounded harmless enough. "We'd be happy to share what we can. Would you like a
tour of our colony?"
"That would be most educational," Vextar replied. Over the next 3 days, the Zephyrians seemed friendly and curious. They asked many questions about human life, especially about families and children. Dr. Carter showed them the school and medical center. The aliens seemed fascinated by how humans cared for their young. "Your offspring are remarkable," Vextar told Lisa as they watched children play in the schoolyard. "Their minds are so flexible, so full of potential." Lisa smiled, thinking it was a compliment. "Children are precious to us. We do everything we can to keep them safe and help them grow." "Yes," Vextar said quietly. "Precious indeed." The aliens set up what they called a research station near their ships. They said they wanted to study local plants and animals. Pete gave them permission, wanting to maintain good relations with their first alien visitors. But Jake felt uneasy. Something about the way the aliens watched the children bothered him. They never spoke to the kids directly, but their big black eyes followed every movement. He increased security patrols and told his officers to keep watch. On the 4th night, Jake's worst fears came true. The attack happened at 3 a.m. when most of the colony slept. The aliens moved through the streets like shadows, their technology making no sound. They had studied the colony for days, learning where each family lived, which houses had children. Amy Rodriguez woke to strange humming sounds outside her window. She looked out and saw gray figures moving in the darkness. Before she could scream, her bedroom door opened. Two Zephyrians entered, carrying devices that glowed with soft blue light. "Do not be afraid, young one of them said in that musical voice. "We will not harm you, we merely wish to study you." Amy tried to run, but the blue light from their devices made her feel sleepy. She fought against it, but her legs wouldn't work right. The aliens picked her up gently as if she were made of glass. All over the colony, the same scene played out. Danny Foster, sleeping peacefully in his bed, woke to find aliens standing over him. Little Sarah Murphy, only 6 years old, cried for her parents as strange hands lifted her from her crib. 47 children in total, taken from their beds while their families slept. The aliens used some kind of gas that kept the adults unconscious. Parents didn't wake as their children were carried away into the night. Jake woke at dawn to alarms blaring throughout the colony. He rushed to his command center where Karen White was crying as she stared at the security monitors. "Jake, the children," she whispered. "They took the children." Jake looked at the screens and felt his heart stop. The playgrounds were empty. The school was silent. 47 families were discovering that their most precious treasures were gone. The security footage showed everything. Gray figures moving through the colony like ghosts. Children being carried to the alien ships. The ships lifting off before dawn, disappearing into space with their stolen cargo. Dr. Carter arrived at the command center, her face white with shock. "I've checked every house," she said. 47 children ages 4 to 12, all gone. Jake watched the footage again, his hands shaking with rage. On the screen, he saw little Amy Rodriguez trying to fight back against the aliens. He saw Danny Foster reaching for his parents as he was carried away. He saw babies crying silently in alien arms. "Why?" Lisa whispered. "Why would they take our children?" Jake pulled up the recordings from the aliens' time in the colony. He played back their conversations, looking for clues. Then he found it. A transmission the aliens thought was private, recorded by accident when they stood too close to a security sensor. "The human offspring show perfect neural development," Vextar's voice said. "Their minds are exactly what we need for the enhancement project. The High Command will be pleased." "Enhancement project?" another alien voice replied. "You mean the experiments?" "Yes. Human children's brains develop telepathic pathways we can harvest. With proper modifications, we can increase our own mental abilities tenfold." Jake felt sick. Lisa grabbed his arm, her face filled with horror. "They're going to experiment on our children," she whispered. Jake activated the emergency communication system. His message would take days to reach Earth, but he had to try. He looked into the camera, his voice steady despite the rage burning. Inside him, "This is Captain Jake Morrison of New Eden Colony. Unknown aliens calling themselves Zephyrians have abducted 47 of our children. They plan to use them for biological experiments. We need help. We need all the help humanity can give. They took our babies. They took our future. Someone has to make them pay." As Jake sent the message into space, parents throughout the colony held each other and wept. Empty bedrooms echoed with silence. Toys lay abandoned in the streets. The Zephyrians had made a terrible mistake. They had touched human children. Now they would learn what that meant. The message from New Eden Colony reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Susan Blake was having breakfast with her family when her emergency communicator buzzed. She almost ignored it, wanting to enjoy a rare quiet morning with her husband and teenage daughter, but something made her answer. Jake Morrison's face appeared on the small screen, his voice breaking as he spoke about stolen children and alien experiments. Susan felt the coffee cup slip from her hands. It shattered on the kitchen floor, but she didn't notice. "Mom?" her daughter Emma asked. "What's wrong?" Susan couldn't answer. She was watching security footage of children being carried away in the night. Little faces, terrified and confused. Babies reaching for parents who couldn't wake up to save them. "Get me the president," Susan whispered to her aide. Now, within an hour, President Kevin Walsh sat in the emergency situation room, surrounded by his top military advisors. The footage from New Eden played on every screen. Grown men and women, hardened by years of difficult decisions, wiped tears from their eyes as they watched. "How many?" the president asked quietly. 47 children, Susan replied. Ages 4 to 12. Kevin Walsh had been president for 6 years. He had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and economic crises. But nothing had prepared him for this. He thought of his own grandchildren safe in their beds and felt something cold and terrible grow in his chest. What do we know about these aliens? General Maria Santos, head of Earth's military intelligence, stepped forward. They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire. We found references to them in some old deep space probe data. They control about 40 star systems in the outer rim. Military strength? Unknown, but assumed to be significant. They've been expanding for decades. President Walsh stood up slowly. Every person in the room could see the change in his face. The politician was gone. In his place stood something much more dangerous. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice carrying a tone no one had heard before. 47 human children have been stolen from their beds. Aliens plan to experiment on them like laboratory animals. This is not a border dispute or a trade disagreement. This is an attack on everything we hold sacred. He turned to face the group. I want every ship, every weapon, every resource this planet has. I want them now. Sir, Admiral Blake said carefully, that would mean total mobilization. We're talking about the largest military operation in human history. Good, Kevin replied. Make it bigger. The news broke 6 hours later. Every human colony, every space station, every ship in the void received the same message. The footage from New Eden played on screens across human space. The reaction was immediate and terrifying. On Mars, factory workers left their jobs to join the military. The Red Planet's massive shipyards began working around the clock, turning civilian vessels into weapons of war. On the moon bases, mining operations stopped as engineers focused on building new kinds of bombs. In the asteroid belt, tough miners who had spent years fighting the cold and dark of space watched the footage and wept. They had left Earth to give their own children better lives. Now someone had stolen children from their beds. Captain Tony Richards commanded a trade convoy near Jupiter when the message arrived. His crew gathered on the bridge to watch, their faces growing darker with each passing minute. When it ended, his first officer, a grandmother of 5, spoke for them all. Captain, we need to go home. We need to help. Already plotting the course, Tony replied. Across human space, the same scene repeated. Trade ships abandoned their routes. Colony defense forces requested immediate reassignment to the main fleet. Even civilian families began converting their personal spacecraft, determined to be part of the rescue effort. On the Zephyrian research ship, Amy Rodriguez tried to comfort the other children. The aliens had put them in a large room with soft walls and strange furniture. They provided food and water, but no explanations. When are we going home? Little Sarah Murphy asked, clutching a stuffed animal the aliens had allowed her to keep. Soon, Amy lied. She was only 8, but she was smart enough to understand they were in terrible danger. The way the aliens looked at them like they were things instead of people made her stomach hurt. Danny Foster sat in the corner, his 10-year-old mind trying to make sense of what had happened. My dad will come for us, he said quietly. All our parents will come. Amy nodded, trying to believe it. But she had seen the alien ship's technology. It was so far beyond anything humans had. How could their parents fight something like this? What Amy didn't know was that her brave words were being heard. The aliens had put listening devices in their prison, wanting to study human behavior under stress. They recorded every conversation, every tear, every frightened whisper. These recordings would eventually reach human intelligence through captured alien data systems. When they did, they would become humanity's battle cry. Dr. Nathan Price, Earth's leading expert on alien biology, worked 18-hour days in his laboratory. He had been given every piece of information humanity had gathered about alien species over the decades. His job was simple: find their weaknesses. They're telepathic, he explained to Admiral Blake during a briefing. That's both their strength and their vulnerability. If we can disrupt their mental connections, their coordination falls apart. How do we do that? I'm working on it, but I need more data. We need to capture some of their technology. Admiral Blake nodded. You'll have it. Meanwhile, the largest fleet in human history was assembling near Earth. 500 warships of every size and type. The flagship USS Vengeance, newly constructed in just 2 weeks, would carry Admiral Blake into battle. But the ships were only part of it. Human industry had transformed overnight. Every corporation, every government, every individual had contributed something. Weapons, supplies, money, ideas. Children held fundraisers at schools. Elderly people donated their life savings. Everyone wanted to help bring the stolen children home. President Walsh addressed the fleet before departure. His speech was broadcast to every human settlement in known space. They took our children, he said simply. They took them from their beds while they slept. They planned to hurt them, to use them, to treat them like animals in a laboratory. This cannot stand. This will not stand. He paused, looking directly into the camera. To the aliens who did this, you have made a grave mistake. You have touched human children. You have awakened something in us that you cannot understand, cannot reason with, and cannot stop. We are coming for our children, and we are coming for you. The fleet departed Earth 3 weeks after the message from New Eden arrived. As they jumped into hyperspace, every human in the galaxy shared the same thought. Bring our babies home. Back on New Eden Colony, Jake Morrison watched the ships disappear into the night sky. Beside him, Dr. Lisa Carter held the hand of Amy Rodriguez's. Mother, they're coming, Lisa whispered. The whole human race is coming, Jake nodded, his jaw set with determination. And God help anyone who stands in their way. In the depths of space, 47 human children waited for rescue, not knowing that their entire species had declared war to save them. The Zephyrians had thought they were dealing with just another primitive race. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human fleet moved through space like a metal storm. 500 ships of war, all heading toward Zephyrian territory. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the stars streak past. Each light reminded her of the children they were racing to save. Admiral, her communications officer called out. Message from Dr. Price on Earth. Susan nodded. Put him through. Dr. Nathan Price appeared on the main screen, his face tired but excited. Behind him, his laboratory buzzed with activity as scientists worked around the clock. Susan, we've made a breakthrough, he said. The Zephyrians are more vulnerable than we thought. Tell me, their entire society depends on telepathic networks. They share thoughts, coordinate actions, even make decisions as a group mind. But that connection is their weakness. If we can jam their telepathic frequencies, they become confused and helpless. Susan felt hope stir in her chest. How do we do it? We've built telepathic jammers based on some old research. They're being loaded onto ships now. When you get close to Zephyrian forces, activate them. It should level the playing field. What about the children? Will it hurt them? Human minds work differently. The jammers won't affect them at all. Susan smiled grimly. Send me everything you have, Doctor. And thank your team. They might have just saved 47 lives. Back on New Eden Colony, the colonists had refused to evacuate. When Earth Command ordered them to abandon the planet, Mayor Pete Sullivan sent a simple reply. No, our children were taken from here. We're going to be here when they come home. Captain Jake Morrison had turned the colony into a fortress. Every adult who could hold a weapon was armed and trained. They had built defensive positions and early warning systems. If the aliens came back, they would find a very different welcome. Any word from the fleet? Dr. Lisa Carter asked as she joined Jake on the observation deck. They're 3 days out from Zephyrian space, Jake replied. Admiral Blake says they'll have our kids back soon. Lisa nodded, but worry showed in her eyes. I keep thinking about Amy and the others, what they must be going through. Jake's jaw tightened. They're strong kids. They'll survive until we get them back. On the Zephyrian research vessel, Amy Rodriguez had become the leader of the captured children. At 8 years old, She was one of the oldest, and her courage inspired the others. She had organized them into groups, making sure the youngest ones ate their food and didn't give up hope. "Tell us the story again, Amy," little Sarah Murphy said. She was only 6 and the strange alien ship scared her. Amy sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by 46 other children. "Once upon a time," she began, "there was a little girl who got lost in a dark forest, but she wasn't afraid because she knew her family would never stop looking for her." The children listened quietly, finding comfort in Amy's words. What they didn't know was that their conversations were still being recorded by the aliens. Every word of courage, every act of kindness, every moment of strength was being documented. High researcher Vextar studied these recordings with growing confusion. He had expected the human young to break down, to become easy subjects for experimentation. Instead, they were showing remarkable resilience. "They continue to support each other," he reported to the Zephyrian High Command. "Their bonds remain strong despite separation from their parents." "Irrelevant," came the reply from Commander Zektor. "Begin the procedures. The Empire needs their neural patterns." But Vextar hesitated. Something about the children's behavior troubled him. In all their previous conquests, captured young had quickly become docile and fearful. These human children were different. They fought back in small ways, broke equipment when they thought no one was watching, and never stopped planning escape attempts. On Earth, President Kevin Walsh met with his cabinet for daily briefings on the rescue mission. The entire planet had transformed into a war economy. Factories that once made cars now produced weapons. Schools had become training centers for volunteers. Even children too young to fight were collecting scrap metal and growing food for the war effort. "Sir," General Maria Santos reported, "we're receiving applications from every human colony. They all want to join the fight." "How many ships do we have now?" "Over 800. More arrive every day." Kevin nodded. The response had exceeded every projection. Humanity had never been so united, so focused on a single goal. The abduction of 47 children had awakened something primal in the entire species. Captain Tony Richards commanded a squadron of converted civilian ships. His crew included teachers, farmers, engineers, and grandparents. None of them were professional soldiers, but all of them were determined to help. "Captain," his sensor operator called out, "we're approaching the outer edge of Zephyrian space." Tony felt his heart beat faster. After weeks of preparation, they were finally here. "All ships, this is Phoenix Leader. Stay in formation. Remember, we're not just fighting for those children. We're fighting to make sure this never happens again." The first contact came sooner than expected. A Zephyrian patrol ship appeared on their sensors, sleek and fast. It transmitted a message in perfect English. "Human vessels, you are entering Zephyrian territory without permission. Turn back or face the consequences. Admiral Blake, commanding." The main fleet from the USS Vengeance responded personally. "This is Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force. You have something that belongs to us. Return the children immediately and we might let some of you live." The alien ship's reply was filled with what sounded like laughter. "Primitive humans think they can threaten the Zephyrian Empire. You cannot comprehend our power." "We're about to find out," Susan said quietly. "All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you touch human children." The battle was brief, but devastating. The Zephyrian ship, relying on telepathic coordination, found itself blind and confused when the human jammers activated. Its weapons fired randomly, missing their targets. Human ships, coordinated by old-fashioned radio and training, swarmed it like angry wasps. Within minutes, the alien vessel was destroyed. As the wreckage scattered into space, every human in the fleet felt the same dark satisfaction. That was for the children. But the patrol ship had sent a warning before it died. Across Zephyrian space, military commanders received the message. The humans were coming, and they were not the primitive species they had seemed. Commander Zektor called an emergency meeting of the High Command. "How many ships do the humans have?" Intelligence reports over 800 vessels, came the reply, and more arriving constantly. 800? Zektor's telepathic voice carried shock. For 47 young, that seems excessive. High. Researcher Vextar, still troubled by the children's behavior, spoke up. Perhaps we underestimated their attachment to their offspring. Impossible, another commander replied. No species values individual young more than the survival of the whole. They are bluffing. But Zektor wasn't so certain. He had studied many species before the Empire conquered them. He had never seen a response like this. An entire civilization mobilizing to save fewer than 50 individuals? It defied all logic. What do you recommend? He asked. Return the human, young, Vextar said immediately, before this escalates further. The chamber fell silent. Return valuable test subjects? Give in to threats from primitives? The idea was unthinkable. The experiments continue, the High Command decided. If the humans want their young back, they can try to take them. Let them learn the price of challenging the Empire. As the Zephyrian fleet prepared for war, they made plans based on their experiences with other species. They expected the humans to send a negotiation team. They expected political maneuvering and attempts at compromise. They expected civilized behavior. They were not prepared for what was actually coming their way, a species that had just declared total war over 47 children, a species that would rather burn down the galaxy than let their young be harmed. The storm was gathering, and the Zephyrians were about to discover that some lines should never be crossed. In the depths of space, Amy Rodriguez told another story to her fellow prisoners. And the little girl knew, she said softly, that no matter how dark the forest got, her family would never stop looking for her. Because that's what families do. They never give up on each other. Unknown to Amy, her words were about to become prophecy. 800 human warships were racing through space carrying the fury of an entire species. The rescue was coming, and nothing in the galaxy would stand in their way. The human fleet struck the Zephyrian Empire like a hammer blow. Admiral Susan Blake watched from the bridge of the USS Vengeance as her ships tore through alien defenses. The telepathic jammers worked perfectly. Zephyrian vessels spun helplessly. Through space, their crews unable to coordinate or communicate. Target the research facility, Susan ordered. That's where our children are. Captain Steve Murphy led the rescue squadron in his ship, the USS Justice. Behind him flew 12 of humanity's best soldiers, all volunteers who had children of their own. They knew exactly what they were fighting for. Breakthrough on Sector 7, Murphy's tactical officer reported. We have a clear path to the research station. Take it, Murphy said. All units, remember the mission. We get those kids out. Everything else is secondary. The Zephyrian research station was massive, a floating city in space where the Empire conducted its experiments. For decades, it had been a place of horror for captured species. Today, it would become something else entirely. The human ships surrounded the station, their weapons trained on its hull. Admiral Blake opened a communication channel. Attention Zephyrian Research Facility. You have 47 human children aboard your station. Release them immediately, or we will take them by force. High Researcher Vextar responded from the station's command center. His telepathic voice carried fear, though he tried to hide it. Admiral Blake, surely we can negotiate. The young are unharmed. We can discuss terms. No terms, Susan replied coldly. No negotiations. No mercy. You took our children. Now you pay the price. The assault began with surgical precision. Human boarding pods punched through the station's outer hull like bullets through paper. Captain Murphy led the first wave, his soldiers moving through alien corridors with deadly purpose. The Zephyrians tried to resist, but their telepathic confusion made coordination impossible. Human soldiers trained for years in small unit tactics systematically cleared each section of the station. Contact, Sergeant Bill Adams called out as his squad encountered alien guards. The Zephyrians fired energy weapons, but their aim was wild and unfocused. Human projectile weapons cut them down with ruthless efficiency. Section 12 clear, Adams reported. Moving to the laboratory levels. Murphy followed the station blueprints they had captured from the patrol ship. The children would be held in the research section, deep in the station's core. Every step took them closer to the 47 stolen lives they had come to save. On the station's main laboratory level, Amy Rodriguez heard explosions and weapon fire echoing through the corridors. She gathered the other children around her, trying to keep them calm. "What's happening?" little Danny Foster asked, his eyes wide with fear. "I think someone's coming to help us," Amy said, though she wasn't sure. The sounds of battle were getting closer. The laboratory door suddenly exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came Captain Murphy and his soldiers, their weapons ready. They stopped short when they saw the children huddled together in the center of the room. "My God," Murphy whispered. Then louder, "We're here to take you home. You're safe now." Amy looked at the soldiers with their human faces and familiar uniforms. After weeks of captivity, seeing other humans felt like a miracle. "Are you really here to rescue us?" "Yes, sweetheart," Murphy said, kneeling down to her level. "We're taking all of you home to your families." The children began to cry, but these were tears of relief and joy. Murphy's soldiers quickly checked, each child for injuries, while other teams secured the laboratory. What they found in the research files made hardened soldiers sick to their stomachs. Detailed plans for neural experiments, equipment designed to cut into young brains. Records of what the aliens intended to do to human children. "Sir," Sergeant Adams called out, his voice shaking with rage. "You need to see this." Murphy looked at the alien research data and felt something cold and terrible settle in his chest. These weren't scientists. They were monsters who had planned to torture children for their own benefit. "Burn it," he ordered. "Burn it all." As the rescue teams evacuated the children, Admiral Blake coordinated the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet. Her ships showed no mercy. Every alien vessel that had participated in the abduction was destroyed. Every facility connected to the research program was obliterated. High Researcher Vextar made one final attempt to communicate. "Admiral, please, we can return the young ones unharmed. There is no need for this destruction." Susan Blake's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring every Zephyrian in the system heard it. "You planned to cut open the brains of sleeping children. You stole them from their beds and treated them like laboratory animals. There is no forgiveness for this. There is no mercy. There is only justice." The USS Vengeance fired its main guns, and the research station exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from 3 star systems away. But the humans weren't finished. Admiral Blake had orders from President Walsh himself. Make an example that the galaxy would never forget. Dr. Nathan Price's telepathic jammers proved even more effective than expected. Entire Zephyrian fleets found themselves unable to function. Their crews, dependent on telepathic coordination, couldn't even operate basic ship systems when their mental connections were severed. Human ships methodically hunted down every Zephyrian vessel involved in the Empire's expansion. Worlds that had supported the research program faced human invasion forces. In 3 days of relentless warfare, the Zephyrian Empire ceased to exist as a functioning government. The children were transferred to medical ships where Dr. Lisa Carter and her team examined each one. Physically, they were unharmed. The aliens had kept them healthy, intending to use them for experiments later. Emotionally, they would need time to heal, but they were alive and going home. Amy Rodriguez sat in the medical bay, holding little Sarah Murphy's hand. Through the viewport, she could see human ships everywhere, hundreds of them, all here because 47 children had been stolen. "Amy," Dr. Carter said gently, "would you like to send a message to your parents, to let them know you're okay?" Amy nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. When the communication screen activated, she saw her mother and father on New Eden Colony, their faces filled with desperate hope. "Mom? Dad?" Amy said softly. Her parents broke down crying, reaching toward the screen as if they could touch her. "We're here, baby," her mother sobbed. "We never stopped looking for you." "I know," Amy said. "I told the other kids you would come. I told them our families would never give up on us." Across the human fleet, similar reunions were taking place. 47 children speaking to parents who had thought they might never see them again. Families, made whole by the sacrifice and determination of an entire species. Captain Murphy found Admiral Blake on the bridge of the USS Vengeance, watching the rescue ships prepare for the journey home. "The children are all aboard medical vessels," he reported. "Full escort back to human space. They'll be home in a week." Susan nodded, but her expression remained hard. "What about prisoners?" "None taken," Murphy replied quietly. "Every Zephyrian involved in the research program is dead. Every ship that participated in the raids is destroyed. Every facility that supported the experiments is rubble." "Good," Susan said. She felt no remorse, no regret. The Zephyrians had crossed a line that should never be crossed. They had learned too late that some actions have consequences beyond negotiation or mercy. The human fleet began its journey home, leaving behind the burning remains of the Zephyrian Empire. Word of the destruction spread quickly through the galaxy. Other alien species watched in shocked silence as humans demonstrated what happened to those who threatened their children. On New Eden Colony, Jake Morrison stood with the parents of the rescued children, watching the sky for the first signs of returning ships. Beside him, Amy's mother clutched a stuffed animal her daughter had left behind. "They're coming home," Jake said quietly. "All of them." The parents nodded, tears streaming down their faces. For weeks they had lived with the worst fear any parent could imagine. Now, thanks to the fury and determination of their entire species, their children were coming home. In the depths of space, 47 human children slept peacefully in medical beds, surrounded by the protective embrace of humanity's greatest fleet. They were safe, they were loved, and they were going home. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Touch human children and face the consequences. No exceptions, no mercy, no survivors. 6 months after the rescue, Amy Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of New Eden Colony, watching ships come and go from the busy spaceport. The colony had changed. Where once there had been simple farms and homes, now there were military, bases and defense stations. The galaxy had become a more dangerous place and humanity was ready for it. "Amy, your mom's calling for dinner," her little brother called from behind her. Amy smiled and followed him home. She walked past memorials built for the 47 children who had been taken. Not memorials for the dead, but monuments to the day humanity declared that its children were worth fighting the entire galaxy to protect. At dinner, Amy's parents asked about her day at school. She told them about her classes, her friends, the normal things that made up a child's life. But sometimes when she thought no one was looking, they caught her staring at the stars with eyes that seemed older than her 9 years. Dr. Lisa Carter still worked on New Eden, but now she also traveled to Earth regularly. She had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on helping children recover from trauma. The 47 had healed well, but their experience had changed them in ways that would last forever. "They're stronger now," she told President Kevin Walsh during a briefing in Washington. "All of them. They understand things about courage and survival that most adults never learn." President Walsh nodded. He had met with each of the rescued children personally, giving them medals of honor, and thanking them for their bravery. But more importantly, he had made them a promise that would reshape human civilization. "No human child will ever be taken again," he had told them. "We will make sure of it." That promise had become the children's doctrine, now written into the constitution of every human world. Any species that harmed human children would face complete extinction. No negotiations, no second chances, no mercy. Admiral Susan Blake, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Space Forces, oversaw the largest military expansion in history. The rescue fleet had never been disbanded. Instead, it had grown into the Frontier Protection Fleet, with bases in every corner of human space. "Status report," she asked Captain Steve Murphy, now her Chief of Operations. "All sectors report normal activity," Murphy replied. "Alien traffic is down 60% from pre-rescue levels. Most species are giving human ships a wide berth. Susan wasn't surprised. News of the Zephyrian Empire's destruction had spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Other alien civilizations had watched in shock as humans systematically eliminated an entire spacefaring species in less than a week. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer the naive species that welcomed strangers with open arms. They had shown they could be peaceful neighbors, but they had also proven they could be something much more terrifying when provoked. Captain Tony Richards, now an admiral himself, commanded the Deep Space Patrol. His ships carried a simple mission: find any trace of species that might threaten human children and eliminate them before they could act. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from the Kantari trade delegation." Tony frowned. The Kantari were a peaceful species, insectoid creatures who had maintained friendly relations with humanity for years. "What's their emergency?" "They say they're under attack by slavers. Unknown species. They're requesting assistance." "Set course immediately," Tony ordered. Full speed. The human response to any call for help involving children had become legendary. When the USS Guardian and her escort ships arrived at the Kantari position, they found 3 alien vessels attempting to board the trade ship. The slaver ships fired first, hoping to drive off the human interlopers. They lasted exactly 37 seconds. As human Marines boarded the Kantari vessel to check for casualties, Admiral Richards transmitted a message that was picked up by monitoring stations across 3 sectors. "This is Admiral Richards of the Human Frontier Fleet. Any species that takes children as slaves will face immediate and total destruction. This is your only warning." The message was broadcast in 47 different languages, one for each child who had been rescued from the Zephyrians. On Earth, President Walsh addressed the United Human Assembly on the anniversary of the rescue. Behind him stood Amy Rodriguez and the other children, now known throughout human space as the New Eden 47. "1 year ago," the president said, "aliens made the mistake of thinking our children were weak and defenseless. They learned differently. Today, human children are the most protected beings in the galaxy, and they will remain so as long as humanity exists." The assembly rose in thunderous applause. Amy stepped forward to the microphone, her young voice carrying clearly through the Great Hall. "A year ago we were scared and alone," she said. "But we never lost hope because we knew you would come for us. Today, I want every child in human space to know you are safe. We will never let anyone hurt you." Her words were broadcast across the galaxy, translated into hundreds of languages. Alien species that had once seen humans as potential prey now understood they were looking at an apex predator that had chosen to be peaceful. But that peace came with conditions. The Galactic Trade Council, representing dozens of alien civilizations, sent a formal delegation to Earth. Their leader, a tall reptilian creature named Sektar, requested a meeting with human leadership. "We wish to establish formal protocols," Sektar explained to President Walsh, "to ensure there are no misunderstandings regarding human offspring." "The protocol is simple," Walsh replied. "Don't touch them, don't threaten them, don't even look at them wrong. Any species that harms a human child will be eliminated completely. No exceptions." Sektar nodded nervously. "And if such an incident occurs accidentally?" "There are no accidents when it comes to children," Admiral Blake said coldly. "Only choices and consequences." The alien delegation left Earth with a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. Humans weren't the friendly explorers they had once seemed. They were something far more dangerous, protective parents with the power to back up their threats. Danny Foster, now 11 years old, attended the military academy on Mars. Like many of the rescued children, he had chosen to prepare for a career protecting others. He excelled in strategy and tactics, his young mind shaped by experiences that had taught him the importance of strength in defense of the innocent. "Why do you want to join the fleet?" his instructor asked during an evaluation. "Because someone has to make sure what happened to us never happens to anyone else," Danny replied. Across human space, the same conversation was happening. The new Eden 47 had become symbols of both humanity's vulnerability and its strength. Their rescue had cost the Zephyrian Empire its existence and had reshaped galactic politics forever. Amy Rodriguez graduated from high school at 16, already accepted to the Naval Academy. On her graduation day, she gave a speech that would be remembered for generations. "We were taken from our beds as children," she said. "We came home as the reason humanity became the most feared species in the galaxy, not because we're cruel, but because we protect what matters most. And what matters most is always our children." As Amy spoke, hundreds of human warships patrolled the void between stars. Alien civilizations conducted their business quietly and carefully, always mindful of the species that had declared total war over 47 stolen children. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Human children were not to be touched, not to be threatened, not to be harmed in any way. Those who forgot that lesson would face the same fate as the Zephyrian Empire, complete and utter destruction. In the quiet moments before sleep, children across human space rested peacefully in their beds, protected by the knowledge that their entire species would go to war to keep them safe. They dreamed of futures where they would grow up strong and free, carrying forward the legacy of the new Eden 47. And in the depths of space, human ships stood watch, their crews ready to remind the galaxy that some lines must never be crossed. The children were safe. Humanity was strong, and the universe had learned to respect both. The age of human dominance had begun, built on the simple principle that had driven a species to war: touch our children and face extinction.